I have these salvages and I've been collecting them for a while. I have lots of quarter friends that give me all their salvages, so I'm really lucky there. The reason why I like salvages is because they don't fray. They've got writing on them, sayings. I like this one. This one's got all writing on it. And then you have ones like this that have the colour dots on them. And then this one's so adorable. It looks like it's got little sheep. And you can get all sorts of different things on the salvages. So don't throw them away. We have lots of projects we could do with this wonderful fabric. I have this 3-inch wide piece of Pellon foam. It's foam flex, and I'm going to use this as my foundation. I want to draw a 45-degree angle across the foam. I'm going to draw the lines first for my reference to guide me when I'm sewing the salvages down. I'm pinning the first one down on the 45-degree angle mark that I drew to help me keep the design. I'm laying the second piece up against where the salvage joins the fabric pattern. I'm just going to sew a straight stitch down that edge. The stitching has caught the edge of the fabric. It doesn't look like it's going to pull out, but it is very close to the edge. I'm going to snip off these long bits and try another one, and then I'll see how I go from there. This salvage has got like a fluffy edge. It's not smooth. This one looks like it's going to pull out. I'm going to do a zigzag. I've changed my mind, so I'm going to zigzag all these salvages down. Yeah, I think I like that better. So I've got the stitch width set at 2.2 and the stitch length set at 1.4, and I've got it set on the zigzag stitch. I'm going to continue adding the salvages down the rest of this foam foundation until I get to the end, and then I'll flip it round and continue down the other side. When I'm coming back in this direction, I'm sliding it down underneath the one in front. You don't have to stick with the cotton salvages. This one is a piece of canvas. I've finished sewing down this one strip, so I'm going to flip it over and trim it down. I want to cut it down into a 2.5-inch strip. I have this 2.5-inch wide ruler, so I'm going to use it to cut the strips into 2.5-inch squares. I have a bunch of various colours of denim that I'm going to cut into strips. These are 16 inches by 1 inch, and these are 10.5 inches by 1 inch. To prep these strips, I'm going to draw a line down the centre, and I'm going to fold the edges into that centre line on the wrong side and press that down. Now, I'm sure there's a quicker way of doing this, but I prefer to do it this way. And that should give me 1/2 inch wide strip. I'm going to repeat that for all of the strips. Look how quick that was. Don't you just love the magic of YouTube? I have a piece of fusible fleece that is 24 inches by 16 inches, and I'm just marking the centre points on all 4 sides. I'm going to draw a centre line down the long sides. Now draw a line 1.5 inches on both sides of that centre line. I have this beautiful piece of fabric that I want to incorporate into my bag. Here I'm trying to figure out how to lay the blocks. I've cut all the blocks to 2-inch squares, but these ones along the bottom edge are 2 inches by 2.5 inches. Everything along the bottom line is 1/2 inch longer than all of the other cut pieces. I like the way that looks, so I'm going to press that down with the iron onto the fleece. Here I'm pinning the strips down with the raw side facing down onto the fabric where the seams are. Here I'm laying the strips down in a weave pattern, alternating under and over down the fabric as I go. I don't want to sew over the strips that go over the top. I'm stopping at the beginning of that strip, doing a stop stitch and then jumping over and starting again. I'm going to continue sewing like this until I've finished sewing down both sides of all of the strips. I've jumped over these and I'm going to cut these threads off, and I'm going to do the same for all of them. I've finished sewing that down and now I'm just cutting off all of those jump stitches. I'm going to flip this over and do exactly the same on this other side so that it's mirror image from what I've just done. I've cut some denim that are 16 inches by 3 inches and I have 4 pieces. And this piece is 16 inches by 4 inches and I have 1. And I have 2 pieces of fusible fleece interfacing and they are 16 inches by 3 inches. Take the 16 inch by 4 inch piece and draw a line that is 1 inch wide. Now we're going to fold the edge over to that 1 inch mark and press that down, and that will give us a 1/2 inch fold under. Now take your main fabric and line it up with the raw edge to the raw edge, right side facing down, and pin that down. I decided to draw my 1/2 inch seam allowance onto the denim so that I can sew straight over that drawn line. This is where I realised I'd made an error and I hadn't cut the fabric big enough. So I made a boo-boo and I messed up on this calculation here. As you can see, I'm quite short, so I'm going to cut myself another piece and then I'm going to cut the fabric in half down this line. I cut another piece that is 3 inches wide by 16 inches. I'm going to go and sew that down just like I did before with the other one. Top stitch those down. I've got to give a shout out to my grandson because he's told me he's subscribed to my channel and watches my videos. So, hi Jake, love you. and I'm just lining them up, so I'm going to cut them level with the fusible fleece. I have two pieces of fabric that are 22.5 inches by 3.5 inches. Flip them over and now draw 3/4 inch seam allowance along both of the long edges on both pieces. Fold over to that line and give them a press. Bring the two folded edges in together and clip those down, and now we're going to go and top stitch down both long sides and repeat the same for the second one. Measure in 8 inches, which is 20 centimetres, and draw a line and repeat the same at the opposite end. Fold the fabric over within these two drawn lines and clip them down. And now we're going to go and top stitch that section down. Take two of the 16 inch by 3 inches and fuse the fusible fleece onto the back. Mark the centres. Measure 4 inches out, 10 centimetres from the centre line and draw a line, and repeat the same on the opposite side, and lay your handles on the inside of that mark. Now measure up 3/4 inch, 2 centimetres, and draw a line. Lay the handle pieces right side facing down on the top ends of the bag and clip in place, and sew down with 3/8 inch, 1 centimetre seam allowance. Press the seams over to the bag side and clip any bulk away from within the side seam allowances. Because there's a lot of bulk within the seams, I'm going to go slow and make sure that my seam is over to the left, so that when I'm top stitching the seam down. Lay the two outer bag pieces right sides together. I'm matching all the seams and clipping down to hold in place. We're going to sew down the sides and across the bottom using 3/8 inch, 1 centimetre seam allowance. Trim off these overhanging bits. Mark the corners 1.5 inches on both corners and cut those out. Press the seams open. Now we need to do the corners. Open out the seams and clip the corners down. And we're going to sew 3/8 inch, 1 centimetre seam allowance. Make sure to backstitch at both ends. Now's a good time to flip the bag out and check all the seams. Give the corners a good press. The sides have matched nicely and the pattern goes all the way around the bag. I got this skirt from a thrift store and I love the fabric, and it's got a pocket, so I'm going to use it for the lining. I'm just working out because I want to keep the pocket in the lining. I don't want to cut it out. So now I'm measuring out 16 inches by 13 inches around that pocket, and that way I get to keep the pocket in the centre. I have two pieces of fabric that are 12 inches by 4 inches. Fold them in half with the right sides together and give them a press. Sew down the short edges. Snip the book from the corners and flip right sides out and give them a press. Fold the fabric in half and mark the centres. Make sure you mark the raw edge and not the folded edge, otherwise you will be in a mess. Fold your fabrics in half along the short sides and mark the centres at the top on both pieces. Match up the centre marks of your zipper casing onto the top of the lining pieces and clip down. And baste these down within the seam allowance just to hold them in place. Now take the two 16 inches by 3 inches pieces and find the centres. And lay them down right sides facing down over the zipper casing. Press the seam bulk down towards the fabric side and top stitch those down. Line the two pieces up right sides together and clip all the way round. Sew up the side seams and the bottom seam, leaving a gap to turn through. Mark the corners 1.5 inches and cut them out. And press the seams open. And now to sew the corners, just like we did on the outer. Flatten the seams and pin them down. And sew the corners 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Put the outer inside the lining, matching right sides together. Make sure to tuck the handles down. Going to match the centre marks and the side seams. Make sure that the side seams are lying flat. And sew all the way around the top of the bag. Pull the line in the bag out from each other. I like to sew my lining into the bag, so pull the corners out and line the lining corners up with the bag corners. Make sure that the seam on the lining is matching the seam on the bag. Clip the corners. And we're going to sew down within the seam allowance. Don't sew past the sewn line. The corners are now attached. Now find the opening in your lining and turn your bag through to the right side. And this is called birthing your bag. It can be a bit tricky, but just keep going and it will eventually come out. Pull your outer away from the lining. I'm just going to give that seam a press because it got a bit creased up. Make sure the bag outer is out the way and you've just got the lining, and pin that seam together. And sew up the opening. The opening's sewn up. Now to turn the bag right side out. and give that top seam a good press. Here I'm clipping it down to hold it flat, and now I'm going to go and top stitch all the way around the outside edge. If your sewing machine doesn't have a removable arm, you can do this much easier if the bag is inside out and then top stitch from the inside. Top stitch the handles down. I have a 15-inch zipper and 2 pieces of fabric that are 3 inches by 2 inches. This is an error, we only need 1, so ignore that I've got 2 showing. Fold the 2 short edges of the tab to the wrong side and give them a press, and now fold the tab in half with right sides together. I'm going to measure the zip within the tab. And this is where I'm going to sew down both sides. Snip away the bulk within the seam allowance and flip the tab right side out. Sew that on all the way around, boxing in the end of the zipper. Fold the zipper ends down at a 90-degree angle and pin those down, and do that for both sides. And sew down in there just a few stitches to hold those down. Line up the zipper end with the end of the casing and pin all the way down. And repeat with the other side. Try and keep the zipper level at both ends. And top stitch those down, pivoting at the corners. Yay, it's all finished, and I absolutely love the way this has turned out. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear all your comments. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please give me a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe, all of the above. I really do appreciate it, and hopefully I can continue making these videos for you. Thank you for watching. Until next time.